So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one. It'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. It doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Stewart. He caught it. He Stewart with a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking, pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
We call him things out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser. Hey, good Tuesday evening, everybody. It's a little recap show of the Falcons and Lions from this past Sunday. Still riding high of that victory Sunday. What an amazing win by the Detroit Lions. Strong defensive effort. Probably one of the strongest we've seen in quite a long time. And we're going to talk a little bit about my 10 takeaways from this game, albeit they're kind of just mushed together today because there is so much to talk about from this game. And I really don't know how to fit it all in. It's just myself tonight. Unfortunately, Andy can't be with us every time we do shows. He has a job that kind of gets him a little busy throughout the week. And some days are just a little bit longer than others. So tonight he's not going to make it. I'm pretty sure he's going to make tomorrow's show. And then Thursday, we're going to try something new. So don't hold it against us. It's going to be our first show doing it. Don't judge us by the first show. Just like the first off the cuff show, which was probably terrible. Don't judge us. We're only halfway into this. We're about 50 episodes in or so. Not all of them been released, but we're only going to get better. And the more of you that join us, at some point, the better it's going to get. And that's what we're waiting on is to get some of these amazing Detroit Lions fans on here, some of the super fans that'll be coming on and joining us later throughout the season. And, and all the rest of us regular fans, right? So here we are. It is Tuesday before the big Thursday night showdown. We're going to recap the Falcons again. Want to get to these 10 points. And then tomorrow we're going to do the Packers prepper. And then Thursday, man, we're going to do this live play-by-play and hope that it goes off well. So first and foremost, man, congratulations to all the Lions fans that were at this game. That is my 10th takeaway, and that's the one that I'm going to start off with first. I'm going to go in reverse order on this one. The fans were absolutely incredible. They were there early. They were ready. They were loud. They were supportive. Even when the game was tight, or it felt like things were just not bouncing our way and, the penalties were racking up, or maybe there were some bad calls and we were just waiting for that blunderous fourth down call that might get pulled out of Dan Campbell's pocket. Even though he does, really well. The guy caused some amazing plays. Between him and Ben Johnson, they call amazing plays on fourth downs. It's just some are maybe a little ill-advised, but who are we? We're just watching it from afar and enjoying it from everywhere. But we always, get that hindsight 2020 view of what we would have done. We're not there underneath the pressure with our blood pressure, probably 160 over 110 and heart rate 120 miles an hour. And you've got to call plays with 65,000 fans screaming timeout at you. That can't be easy. So kudos to the fans, man. Everyone there was absolutely incredible. And the feeling heading in and heading out, it's always inspiring to watch and to feel and to be part of the chants going throughout the tunnels. If you haven't been to a game, spend the money, get to a game, support your Lions. And if you can't do that, join us Thursday night for our live play-by-play that we're going to try to pull off. And again, hopefully it goes well. All right, so now we'll wind it back to the first point. And let me start off by saying this. The Lions won a very pivotal game against the Falcons 20-6 last Sunday. This game was not, like I said, without moments of anxiety or fear that the bottom was just going to fall out and we were going to, lose another game that is so close, but we might lose it in the end. And the Lions stepped up. And they stepped up when it was needed, and they overcame the bad calls, by the refs, which I'm not going to keep pouring into the refs. They've been on us all season. They've been on a few other teams too, but for some reason, there's been quite a few calls that really make you scratch your head at what's going on because it doesn't make any sense. And I'll get into at least one of the calls, I think, in one of my takeaways, but I'm not going to dwell on it. The way, like I've said all season long, you take the refs out by putting points on the board. You keep the refs out by keeping points off the board, and that's what the Lions need to do. So here are my 10 takeaways from this win. Maybe the best defensive win we've seen in 3 seasons, even though it wasn't perfect. And I'm glad it wasn't perfect because if we were this perfect this early in the season, well, what do we have to expect for the rest of the season? You don't want to plateau too early, right? You want to be playing your best ball in December. You want to lock it up in November. And you want to be ready to go come January. So I'm excited to see where this defense is going to get to because they've got a lot to clean up. And there's one point that I'm going to make tonight that's probably going to shock you. So if you stick around to the end, you're going to hear it. But anyway, like I said, I'm glad, where we are right now because we've got a lot of things to clean up, but they'll get it done. So first and foremost, man, Lions rookies outside of the fans, best product on the field. The Lions rookies are really stepping up where and when it matters. Branch, my goodness, the Packers screwed up. How dare you give us that draft pick and allow us to pick what's probably, arguably, the best safety out of this draft. Could end up being the best DB overall in this draft. And in my opinion, he is the defensive or the rookie defensive player of the year so far. He's definitely got his hat in the running for this one. Branch is proving that he may be this steal that we've all been waiting for and someone that's going to help lock up that seatbelt gang, right? I mean, they're going to get it done together with Walker and Joseph when CJ Gardner hopefully gets back. I mean, this is a scary unit and one that when they finally click, I think they could put the old Legion to Boom to shame. And I know that's a tough one to say, and you're probably going to slaughter me for saying that, but that's just how I feel. I think they can get it done. I really do. We haven't even seen Emmanuel Mosley on the field yet, and we probably won't see him Thursday. So we still have more pieces to add to this chessboard, and the Lions are going to get where they need to get, and they're going to do it. So all right, Brian Branch playing 100% of the defensive snaps last Sunday. Finished the game with 11 solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 passes defended, and played probably the most complete game of any defensive back in the season so far. Not just the Lions, but I mean, as a defensive back, he played a very complete game. Sure, he didn't get an interception, he didn't get a fumble, but man, he was everywhere. He was everywhere that he needed to be. And he's one of the biggest reasons why the Falcons could not get the running game going at all. He was filling the gaps quickly. He was breaking up passes when he needed to be. He was manhandling receivers, limiting the play, negating any sort of a yak. And he wasn't afraid to mix it up. He was called for this unnecessary roughness call. And this is one of the penalties I couldn't believe that was called. Now, it was also a penalty against Bijan Robinson, and darn well they're going to protect their number one running back off the board, right? I mean, it just so happens that, the guys that are, supposed to be the best in the league, they're going to get protected. Whether it's a quarterback, a wide receiver, I don't care what offensive player it is, they're going to protect them. Bijan Robinson got his helmet knocked clean off, and it wasn't an illegal play. Branch didn't lower his head. He didn't leave his feet. Matter of fact, Branch was almost falling back when he made the contact. So how dare they call an unnecessary roughness call on a defensive back that just sniffed out the play, got there when Ritter had no clue he was there and still threw the ball, and then knocks, Bajan Robinson clear out and knocks his helmet off, and that's why they called the penalty, because the helmet went flying. They didn't take a look at it because they can't. They just suspected the worst and threw the flag. So shame on the NFL for doing stuff like that. I really think that should be a reviewable play. They review some of that stuff in college, for targeting. Why couldn't they review something like that in these games for the NFL? It doesn't take that long, but they can be very, critical moments in a game, especially in the last 2 minutes, like we saw in the Super Bowl last season, which that was, that push out of bounds on Mahomes. I mean, that was an accurate call, but there it is, those plays can totally change a game, and it won a Super Bowl for the Chiefs. Now, it doesn't mean that the Chiefs wouldn't have won it. It just means that they had a better opportunity to kick that field goal now. So, I don't want to see those plays dictate games. I don't want to see the refs dictate games like that. And I know they try their best in the last 2 minutes not to, but these are the types of plays that are too critical. The timing is too critical. But here's the one thing that I loved about Branch after the game. Excuse me for just a moment. Branch isn't going to quit. He's not going to stop doing what he's doing. And I'm paraphrasing here because someone had the audacity to take what he said to the press down. They kind of concealed it a little bit. I haven't been able to find it. Obviously, I wasn't there to get all the tape, but I did hear it one time. And I'm paraphrasing here. So don't kill me later when they maybe put it back out. But I've scrubbed every bit of the internet to try to find his after the game media session, and it's up there. But when he starts to talk about it at the end, it's now gone. So again, I'm paraphrasing. This is what he told the reporters after the game. He basically stated that he would rather show his aggressive play style, make the play, and take the penalty than play any other type of way that doesn't meet his core values as a player. Kudos to you, Branch. Do not let these NFL referees tell you how to play. The man plays clean. He plays hard, right? He's getting his nose in there. He's playing old school football, and that's why I posted that video of Benny Blades. He was one of the most vicious punishers on the field, and one of the earliest players that I remember as a kid that I watched that was just so invigorating to watch. I mean, just so aggressive on the field. And that's who he reminds me. They kind of look like each other, too, if you actually look at them side by side. It's kind of weird. But, Benny Blades, nickname BB. Now you got Brian Branch, nickname BB. So just kind of caught the attention, of myself the other day and posted that video. I thought it was fitting. But kudos to Branch, man. He's not going to stop what he's doing. We're going to get this aggressive play style. Dan Campbell's not going to wind it back. AG is going to press the gas pedal on it. And we're going to see more incredible plays out of Branch throughout the season. What's not cool, right, about the play that they called, or the penalty that they called against Branch is that the refs didn't call one later against the Falcons, which was clearly egregious and a much worse hit later in the game. So if you're going to call it one way, let's call it both ways. That's the only thing that I'm going to ask. All right, Laporta. Did we expect Laporta to catch on as fast as he is? Because I didn't. I expected him to be good. I expected him to be about average for the season, maybe a little bit above average. And the only reason why I said that in the beginning of the season is because Ben Johnson's play calling last season did not really involve the tight ends. Even when we had TJ Hawkinson, he was largely unused. And he only got a few good games before he was traded. So, in matter of fact, I think he only had one good game the entire season with the Lions where he went over 100 yards. Don't quote me there. I'm just going off memory, but I think I'm pretty accurate on that one. But Laporta, man, he's leading NFL tight ends in yards, not by much, but he's leading 3 games through the season with yards per catch, plays over 20 yards, and he finally got his first TD versus the Falcons. And TJ Hawkinson is the only one with 2 TDs that's above him. Goff has steadily increased his role each game with more targets, starting with 5 versus the Chiefs, 5 targets versus the Chiefs, 6 versus the Hawks, and 11 versus the Falcons. He's averaging an 81.8% catch rate. 81.8. That's like Goff when he played versus Seattle. He had an 80% completion rate, right? I mean, that's just an unheard of catch rate for not only a tight end, but a rookie. The guy's balling out of control. Goff's building trust with Laporta. We're seeing it. It's evident. And I believe this is going to be a very special relationship for these two going forward. Laporta finished with 8 receptions on the day for 84 yards and 1 TD. And he's definitely one of the players of the game. He made critical catches when they were needed. And what is surprising about his game that's not talked about enough is the guy is a blocker. He goes out there and he gets into that second or third level and he lowers the block where it needs to be. He doesn't care who it is. He's one of them that's going to mix it up. And what's so funny about Laporta, and I say it all the time, is the guy is a big goofball. You know, like after the game when they're walking out of the tunnel, he was watching his TD on his phone. Goff came up next to him, and this was a funny moment too. Goff came up next to him, and Laporta is laughing. He is like, "Man, that ball hung up there for like 15 seconds. I thought I was going to drop it." Man, the look Goff gave him, like, you better not. You know what I mean? Like, you better not drop it. I just started laughing to myself, and I'm like, that's a special relationship right there. So I can't wait to see more. All right, third rookie, Jack Campbell. He didn't have his cleanest game. Might have been one of his worst games of the season. At one point, Hutchinson had to throw him off the line and onto the other side of the field because he was in the wrong lineup, I'm assuming. We're on the wrong side at least. And he did, however, make some nice plays, and he finally got his first sack, So hats off to Jack Campbell, Captain Jack, finally getting in the backfield. But on top of the sack, he did record 6 total tackles, including a tackle for loss, all while taking, on a new position. He was in the Sam linebacker position, and I think this was a great move for the Detroit Lions so far. Whether they're going to stick with it or not is yet to be seen. Right? Haven't heard anything, out of camp, out of Allen Park camp yet. Are they gonna stick to it? Is this change for a reason? In the beginning of the season, you guys might remember that I said I would not put Jack Campbell at middle linebacker to start the season, at least starting. You're going to want your captain, which is Alex Anzalone. He needs to be the leader of those linebackers. He knows all the calls. He knows all the fits for every position on the field. He did an excellent job last season when they finally dialed everything in after about week 7 or 8. They started to really get motoring. Week 9, they really started to take off. And a lot of that was because Anzalone was able to play free finally. He didn't have to worry about all the rubbish that was going on with Aubrey Pleasant and all the bad alignments and missed calls and miscommunications that was happening at the beginning of the season. When he was able to play his game, Anzalone is one of the better middle linebackers in the game. And I know that's an unsexy position to have, but it truly is. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Anzalone in a minute. But seeing that Jack was in a new position and he really didn't have any major letdowns the entire game was a great thing to see out of a young rookie, a young man that is learning the position, learning how to play in the NFL. But again, he didn't have his cleanest. He didn't have his best. And I'm happy for that. Because it means we're only going one way, and that's up. These players have a lot to learn yet. And within 3 games, they're making leaps and bounds. So we just got to hope that it can continue on a short practice week, right, between the Falcons and the Packers. And we're kind of dinged up. But we'll get to some of that here in a minute, too. So like I said, he did finally make some good plays, got his first sack, recorded 6 tackles. And including a tackle for loss, all while taking on the new position at Sam linebacker. It was his first opportunity. He had the entire season to even take snaps at that position, which makes me think like this might have been a last-minute change within, the 2 days coming up to the game, because they had a full walkthrough on Friday. Yet they're not really snaps, if you will. They're not live snaps. It is, a full-paced walkthrough. I would assume that he at least got in for some of those. But maybe not. I don't know. Wasn't there. What I loved most about the sack, though, was he didn't do some fancy dance. And I don't know if you guys caught this or not. It's the end of the half, right? He ends the half. He acted like he'd been there before. He walked off the field to the locker room to end the half, acted like he'd been there before. I'm not new to the game. I'm not new to being here. This is what I do. This is who I am. I'm going to own it, and I'm going to earn it, and I'm going to work for it, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I get out of Jack Campbell every time I see this guy play. Well, who does that remind you of? I'm going to pause for a second. Who does that remind you of? And I apologize about the chat. If you guys are sending me chats right now, I'm not going to be able to get to it for just a second. So send me your comments here on who's Jack Campbell reminding you of in that instance. And it's not a defensive player. I see the chat lighting up. Keep them coming. I'll get to it in just a second. All right. So who it reminds me of is number 20, Barry Sanders. And the reason why I say that is every time Barry Sanders made a touchdown, every time he walked into the end zone, he acted like he'd been there before. He handed the ball off to the ref in the most awesome, graceful way to exit the field with respect and honor to the game and being humble. So I think you all know who that is, man. Just got his statue put up the northwest corner of Ford Field. Amazing statue, by the way. Great job. Nice taste. All right, last rookie I'm going to get to, and then I'll jump to the chat. GIBBS. Look, we all wanted more touches for the guy. He got them. Didn't do anything with it. I get it that he did end up with some yards at the end, right? He had a very slow start. He only averaged about 2.2 yards through 3 quarters. He had 4 straight carries in the last drive for 37 yards, on the final scoring drive. I apologize, which elevated his numbers. But this is kind of almost like garbage time here. And I hate to even say that it's like garbage time because all the time in this game really mattered. But GIBBS, he has not had many touches at all, or at least that many running through the tackles. And they fed him, and they fed him, and they fed him. And they kind of gave him his welcome to the NFL moment versus the Falcons. I'm glad that they finally did that. It didn't work out the greatest, but you know what? He didn't fumble the ball. And I think he did a pretty good job. Again, not his cleanest game. This is not a guy, even if he puts up, and I forget his stats. I don't have it pulled up. I apologize. What did he have? Like 80 yards, 79 yards, something like that. I mean, it's not a slouch game, but if you can get that many yards by having a bad game, imagine what he's going to have when he has a good game, let alone a great game. So long way to go for GIBBS. I love what the Lions are doing here with his plan, but so far we just haven't seen what we're expecting out of the 12th overall pick. And I think he's going to be fine. I'm not bashing the kid. I think he's going to be fine. It's way early in his career. I think he's going to be just fine for the Detroit Lions. I just think that it's going to take a little bit of time for him to catch on. All right, let me jump into the chat here. First one up. Let's see. David Fox says, yes, it was. And I can only assume that it was you're meaning, yes, it was to the defensive portion of this game. One of the best defensive games we've seen. Mike Miller, always Hutchinson, man. Hutchinson had a good game. And I'm going to get into him in a little bit too. 7 sacks, man, by David Fox. That was awesome. Nobody expected that. Look, I called 3. And I posted it late, and I don't even think I actually posted it, but I thought the Lions were going to get 3, and they got 7, and they got them in a row. And once they figured out what they needed to do, man, they lit on fire. You couldn't stop them. And there's something that I'm going to speak to this. Maybe I'll speak out of turn, and I'll probably say it again later when I get to the rest of my show here. But I think the Lions figured something out with the guys that they have on this team. When I was sitting about the 42-yard line is where my seats are, right there behind the Lions bench. And for this game, the other section's 243, but for this game, we were in down there 105. So when you're down there, you can kind of see everyone's huddled up against, AG during the defensive part of the game. And you had the same 3 or 4 guys rotating in and out. Now, it's common to have rotating 1 or 2 guys kind of in and out. The Lions had sets. They were rolling in with sets. And I think they were trying to, maybe not, I don't know, trying to kind of give you the ebb and flow of a speed ball and a fastball and a changeup. One set is, fast and they're going to come at you. And the other one's like a changeup. And you're seeing more hitch steps and jump steps on the edge and more bend on the edge versus the guy that was in there before. And it's throwing those offensive tackles off. then it's throwing the interior defensive lineman off. So if that's what they were trying to accomplish, I think they did. And they did because it really began to work. Mike Miller says he's judging. Who you judging, Mike Miller? Who you judging? All right, let's rock 100%. Rock down Detroit Lions. Thank you for that comment, Charles Goins. Myers Farm, always back in the house. Nice to see you too, man. Hey, guys, go Lions. David Fox, he was very conservative, but very effective. Are we talking about Dan Campbell here? Because he was pretty conservative. And I'll speak on that in a little bit too. Way too many bad calls. Yes, there was 100%. Bad calls, ill-timed calls, just horrendous calls. And I feel like it's not just the Lions. There's a lot of teams it's happening to. But I really only care about the Lions. So, huge game coming up. Kings of the North. Yes, that is on the line for this Thursday. It's going to be an excellent game. Look, the Lions are going to show up. You know, when you've got a kid like Brian Branch that is going to show up and show out every single game, the rest of the guys are going to fall in the line too. And I'm not saying he's the leader of the defense, but he's starting to become a leader of this defense. He's got the green, sucker on his head for a reason. He can do it, and he's going to do it. And man, that guy loves to come clean some clock up in the box. And it really, really is making me excited where this kid's game is going to go. I hope he stays healthy throughout the entire season because I want to see him have the defensive rookie of performance that I think he can have. Rookies were outstanding. David Fox, thank you for that comment. Yes, rookies were definitely outstanding. But who do we give the credit to? Who do we really give the credit to for these rookies? Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes brings them in. Dan Campbell and the rest of the crew builds them up. Gets them ready for game time. Gets them ready for the big lights, right? Brad Holmes is incredible at being the GM that he is. He is the perfect GM for this city so far. He is finding the players that fit the culture, the grit factor, the blue collar. They fit. They fit. They fit the city. They fit the scheme. They fit everything. It is up to the coaches to elevate them every single week, right? Every single camp, every single season, and get the best out of them. And so far they are. Great comment here by Myers Farm. He said, Lomas said you don't pass at Branch and you don't run at Branch. You just don't. They tried. They really tried. I forgot to mention 11 tackles by Brian Branch, all solo, 100% solo, up in the box, couple on the outside in the flats. Guy played lights out. Biggest 3-game. Let me put it on the screen here. Myers Farm. His 3-game catch numbers is awesome. Laporta, I assume we're talking about. We're using our tight ends again. We are 100%. Finally, I think that they're going to, we haven't seen Brock Wright get much action, and I'm fine with that, but we know that we have a secret weapon in Brock Wright. Talking a little funny. I had this steroid injection in my equina yesterday, a little epidural action going on. Funny story. Not funny. Couldn't walk last night. Completely paralyzed from the legs below or legs down. Still recovering from it. But it's messed me all up, man. Can't talk, can't walk, can't feel, can't do anything. But here I am, plugging it away for you guys, plugging it away for the Detroit Lions, because this is what I love to do. GIBBS definitely outperformed Bijan Robinson. GIBBS stock is rising. He'll get there. It's rising. He'll get there. Bijan couldn't crack our defense. Great running backs can crack a defense, but our defense rose above, and they played at a different level than we've seen them play in the first 2 games. If they would have played this way against the Chiefs, we would have won by 20 points. If they would have played this way against Seattle, we would have won by 20 points. They just got to show up and play. And AG can't be afraid to dial up blitzes, and he finally did. He can't be afraid to put him in zone defense and still let him blitz, because that's what he did. The one thing that I called last Friday before the game is I said, if we can finally see AG dial this up, where we've got a zone and you've got your DBs coming up in the nickel, right? Coming up into the slot like Brian Branches and hitting the gaps and following behind a Hutchinson or following behind a Kaminsky, we'll have success. And that's what they did. Hutchinson really blows up that corner on the tackle. He really does a great job. He just gets too far back too often. And what we're seeing now is they're following that up either with a linebacker or the nickel to clean up that hole that Hutchinson is creating, which forces the quarterback to go somewhere else, or you're meeting the running back up in the hole and you're making the play. All right. I'm going to keep moving forward here, if you don't mind. Gibbs had 17 carries for 80 yards. Thank you for clearing that up, Donald Wilburn. I appreciate that, buddy. Our O-line isn't 100%. Yes, that is another issue that we're going to face, and it's not getting any better. I can't say that I'm extremely upset about Nelson because the guy's a sieve. He just always has been a problem. But at the same time, man, he's a lion, and that offensive line trusts him. Dan Campbell trusted him, so he obviously knows and sees something in him that, he belongs. If he didn't belong, he wouldn't have been the 7th, offensive lineman on this roster. But it sounds like he's gone down with a knee injury. He's going to be out for a while, if not the season. I haven't looked at the injury report yet today. I really won't till tomorrow anyway. So, all right, I'm going to move on here. We're going to get into key point number 2. Feels like we've already talked about a lot, and we're only on number 2. All right, number 2, the Lions had 7 sacks. We touched on this a little bit, but after having just 1 in the first 2 games combined, and that 1 was a broken play. Geno Smith decided to run to the 2-yard line and, get tackled. Don't know why, but I'm glad he did. Lions still should have won that damn game. Anyway, 1 sack, nothing by the defensive front. 2 games. Benito Jones kicks it off. Barnes follows suit on the next play. Then Harris, McNeil, Campbell, and Hutchinson 2 times. The defense needed this. Big time comeback game for them. The defensive front needed this. They needed to feel it. They needed to get that energy. They needed to share it with everybody. And they did. You guys have heard me talk about it a million times of production versus stats. I'd rather see these guys have production and work together in that hive defense. That is a term that I've always used. And when they're working together and they're kind of cornering the quarterback and bottling the running back, any one of them is going to be able to make a play. And that's what we saw on Sunday. And it's shown right here. The proof is right here. Benito, Barnes, Harris, McNeil, Campbell, 6 guys got a sack. That's playing together as a team. That's playing together as a hive. Those are being producers. Every single one of those guys is working so the next guy next to him or the guy next to him is able to do something for this team in a positive way. So carrying this momentum into Thursday is going to be paramount to the Lions being able to win. And being able to bring this defensive momentum into the game is going to be needed. They cannot slow down. They've got to pick right back up where they left off to be able to win this game. We're not coming into a game that, and tomorrow is going to be about the game, but we're not coming into a game where this defense has many holes. So the offense is going to have to be on fire too, but this is going to be a defense that we need to work. And I think that they can work against this young quarterback that hasn't had a tremendous amount of experience. And like I said, for Riddler, you got to rattle the Riddler, rattle Ritter. That was my little funny joke last week. I don't think it went over well, but now we've got to get to the other quarterback. Jordan Love, man, we ain't got no love for you, buddy. We're going to get after you. And I don't care if we get 5 flags for getting after him, as long as we win the game. All right, number 3, key point number 3, Sam Laporta. Definitely was the co-star of this offense, right? Co-offensive player of the game with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Brown finished with 9 receptions for 102 yards. He didn't make the end zone, right? Goff scored the only other rushing TD and the last TD for the Lions of the game. But, man, does Brown he gets it done. Game in and game out. And what's funny is after the game, I got to thinking to myself, I'm like, you didn't hear Brown's name a whole lot. Like, it didn't seem like he was having a good game. And then you find out he has over 100 yards on the day, 9 catches. It didn't seem like it. But are we getting used to it now? Because the guy just does it. He did his work so quietly, so unnoticed throughout the game. But at the same time, it was noticed and it was needed, and it helped this team win. Goff was on fire. The first half, completing his passes at an impeccable rate. He was 7 of 8, I think, in the first quarter. I can't remember, the second quarter where he finished, but I think he was darn near, 88, 87% completion rate. It wasn't until, the offensive line started to have some, a little bit of a struggle and some injuries in that, in the third and fourth quarter that the inconsistency started to come in, Devin to throw balls off, into the dirt, throw them away, whatever he had to do to save the play, which again is a credit to Goff. All right. He doesn't make the stupid decision of trying to force it. He doesn't make the stupid decision of trying to run and you lose the ball on the ground or something. You lose a fumble and you have a turnover at the worst time. No, you just get rid of it, man. You live to play the next play. And that's what he did. But what we're seeing out of this, Brown, we know who he is, and we know who he's going to be game in and game out. Laporta, he has a huge ceiling. He's just now starting to scratch that ceiling. I gave Laporta 50 receptions and 500 yards as a great season for a rookie tight end. It appears that not only will he be able to get there, but he's going to eclipse those numbers. The surprise, like I said earlier, has been his run blocking ability, getting to the second and third tier, putting his body in front to allow Montgomery, when he was playing against Seattle, to get through holes. It's been incredible to watch Laporta do what he does. All right, point 4, key point 4. Lions front 5 was penalized 4 times trying to protect Goff. Too many penalties. They were beaten badly at times. And Goff was, like I said, he was wise enough to throw it away and move on. Goff took plenty of hits from the Falcons pass rush. We expected it. We expected them to get after Goff. The biggest reason for this, like I said, is the O-line was facing some big-time deficiencies. I hate that that I called it in the beginning of the season when the roster came out and we only had 8 offensive linemen. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. We've never kept 8 offensive linemen. Why would we do that? Once you get past 6, they're not that great. And we got a couple of rookies there. Or at least one we had there. So first time in decades that I've seen the Lions keep less than 9. They usually kept 10. And they would usually load up, the practice squad with at least a couple of guys. I know that in 2022, they kept 9 offensive linemen on the initial 53, and they still put 2 more on the practice squad. This year, they kept 8 offensive linemen on the initial 53 and put 4 on the practice squad. But those 4 have really never played a down in football really in their life in the NFL. And Colby Sorsdahl, 5th round pick, I've got high hopes for that kid. And man, did he really hang in there. He did a great job for what he was dealt. And we'll talk about that right now. Key point 5. Offensive line's battered. They're hurting. Nelson started the game at right tackle, was injured in the first half. He left the field on a cart, ultimately ruled out with a knee injury. Nelson was then replaced by Dan Skipper, who, oh, by the way, was just signed from the practice squad that week off the streets, was forced to come into the game and then forced to leave like 2 drives later with a hamstring injury. So he went from the streets to the practice squad back home. In the matter of hours, it seemed like. It is what it is. Those are the kinds of things that happen in the NFL. And the other kinds of things that happen in the NFL is guys by the name of Colby Sorsdahl, who's a rookie, 5th round pick, makes his NFL debut. He played tackle in college, right? But almost exclusively played guard for the Lions all training camp long and preseason. And he comes in and he starts at right tackle for his first snap in an NFL game. Kudos to Sorsdahl, man. That's some gritty play. Some balls on that kid to come in and do that. So the offensive line had finished the game left to right. Penei Sewell, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Graham Glasgow, and Colby Sorsdahl stuck it out. So high hopes for this kid too, man. I really think that, again, it's a product of Brad Holmes, his masterclass in his draft process, in getting the guys that he knows can be somebody someday. It's early for Sorsdahl. He's got a big ceiling, right? Hopefully. We'll see. But, you typically aren't expecting to see somebody like that come in this early in their career. You want to see them get to that second year when, they've got more time on the task, like Dan Campbell likes to say very often. So Glasgow, he started in place of Vaitai, who suffered a knee injury last week against Seattle. So we're already getting down on the offensive line depth chart. And once you're getting past Vaitai and then Nelson, the rest of these guys are like third stringers. So I'm hoping, and I need to look at the transaction list, tomorrow, and I will, but I'm hoping that Brad Holmes is really trying to go out and find a veteran, younger veteran that can play, that can come in and fill, because we need them. If we're going to make a deep run in the playoffs at all, you can't be running in with third string tackles and guards and hoping that you're going to be able to do something. And I may be totally wrong, but I've never seen it done before. They'll get eaten up with these better defenses that they're going to face. All right, let me jump into the chat here. All right, let me back it up. Our run defense has been lights out. They definitely have. They've been doing pretty well. I don't know what the overall numbers are off the top of my head. I didn't go deep into this one. I'm going to save that one for tomorrow when I kind of really lay up what we're doing for the next game. I like to get into where we are, what we're doing, both offensively and defensively. Monty's health status. Sounds like Monty's going to be back. Dan Campbell said today in the presser that, all signs are pointing that, he's looking good. I don't really know if they ever classified anything else as a deep thigh bruise. Bone bruises are really tough. But even a deep, thigh muscle, bruise can be really tough, especially for a running back. But that's been his issue. Something in the mid thigh that he suffered in week 2. But it sounds like he's going to be able to be back. And if he's not back this Thursday, he'll definitely be back in the next game against Carolina. Could we have playoff win this year? Hey, man, that's the goal. Look, I'm hoping for a home win, a home game, home win. We got to get there, but you're not going to get there playing third stringers deep into the season. Like I said, the competition's only going to get better. And as soon as you get to the playoffs, man, there's nobody on those rosters unless they're hurt too, which is doubtful they're going to make it into the playoffs if you've got a really hurt team, unless they're really deep. We need to get deeper in a hurry on offensive line. The one thing, since we're talking about depth, and I'm going to throw this out there. I said it the other day. Why the Lions made the choice to take Mosley off, of PUP when they could have put him on reserve PUP, opened up that spot and kept Starling Thomas, blows my mind, because it doesn't sound like Mosley's going to play this Thursday either, but he should be ready for Carolina. So that's when he would have been available anyway, if they would have just switched him to reserve PUP and left open a spot for the defensive backfield. We've already suffered too many injuries back there too, but Starling Thomas would have been that guy that, could have been another Branch. He played a similar game. Now, nowhere near the skill yet of a Branch, but Starling Thomas, man, that kid had it, and I can't wait to see what Gilmore brings to the table. But having those two as the young studs that they are, I think that was kind of a blunderous move on their behalf. But that's why I'm sitting in this chair, not their chair too. They know something more than I do. Way too many penalties. 10 for over 100 yards. That is not playoff football. You are 100% right there, Mr. Wilburn. And they've really got to step it up on cleaning up the game. But I'm going to attribute about 40% of those to the refs and making terrible calls. I still think it's too much. Even if they would have 6 for 60, that's still too much. The offensive line definitely can't have, a bunch of penalties. The one thing that I will tell you, though, is we're not seeing a ton of false starts, which is great. False starts kill the drive. We've had a couple here and there, but we haven't had too many. The holding calls, stuff like that. That stuff's it's stupid. Can't do it. Myers Farm, you got a long one here. It sounds like you're putting Gibbs' lack of production on Gibbs. If there's anyone to blame, give the O-line or coaches. Give it to the O-line or coaches. I heard a comment that our O-line wasn't getting to the next level downfield. No, they really haven't been. Laporta has been. Laporta's been doing a great job whenever he's pulling off of one side or the other and going into that second level. Laporta's been doing a great job. There's a lot of tape on it. But again, we're taking injuries right now at the positions where you're expecting those guys to pull. Your left tackle is not going to pull a whole lot, but the tight end on the outside of the left tackle will. The inside guard and the left guard should pull a little bit if you're running to the right. We just don't have the depth right now to be able to get up to the next level. Kobe Sorsdahl is definitely not going to be ready for it when he's playing, position he hasn't played all season. It's a scheme thing too. They've got to know the scheme. But they'll get there, man. Remember, we're into week 3. We're heading into week 4. But I hear you, Myers Pharma. I hear you, bud. I do put a lot of the blame, on the play calling personally. I think that when you're trying to, shove a round peg into a square hole and taking GIBBS and forcing him through the tackles, and he's not having success, and you're doing it play after play after play, and the guy is electric on the outside of the field. We were doing nothing to get him the ball to where he plays well. And like I said, after the Seattle game, we heard it all season, that this team is focused on bringing players in and putting them in the position to be successful by allowing them to play to their strengths. If GIBBS is an outside guy, let him be an outside guy. Just disguise the play so that the defense doesn't know it's coming all the time. If you're going to run some, intermediate stuff or inside the tackle stuff, you've got to get a little shifty with it. You've got to use some uniqueness. But at the same time, you would not need to run it behind Sorsdahl. Why would you put it behind a guy that has like 0 NFL experience right now? Go to the left side. Don't go to the right. Every time he ran to the left, he had more yardage. So it's a combination of everything. But I hear you there. You're right, man. Number 6, which is a big one for the day. The Lions held Atlanta to just 183 net yards. They kept the Falcons out of the end zone. Huge for the defense to keep a touchdown off the board. I'll say it for the 50th time this season. 20 points or less. You keep the opposing offense to 20 points or less, you are going to win probably 95% of the games. Unless you are extremely injured and you have 0 weapons, you're going to win those games. And they held them to 6 points. No touchdowns. So the interesting fact here is the walls were caving in on Aaron Glenn, right? And this defense. Having the fan base they wanted heads to roll. As usual, it's week 2 and they want heads to roll. Fire Dan Campbell, fire Aaron Glenn. Oh my God, same old Lions. Look, they were apathetic. They got out hustled. They were outgunned. They had no intensity. They lacked aggressiveness. They were completely ineffective in allowing over 400 yards and 30 points to the Seahawks. I get it. People were pissed. That's a game we shouldn't have lost. They were decimated on the front line. Aaron Glenn redeemed himself. The defense definitely redeemed themselves. They just have to take the next step and do it 2 times in a row now. And then 3 times in a row. And just keep laying brick after brick after brick. And get us into, week 18 where we're playing the best ball that we could possibly play. And hopefully we're as healthy as we can possibly be, just like any other team out there that's going to be in pretty rough shape. Key point number 7. Glenn finally dialed up some blitzes. He mixed up the coverages. He did a much better job at disguising everything pre-snap. Knowing that he could confuse a young quarterback in Desmond Ridder, the Lions really dictated the adjustments, to the Falcons offense. This is something that I don't know if people pay attention to, but it's something that I pay attention to. And when I watch games and I watch, the offense, if they're adjusting or not adjusting at the line, there is a huge difference that if an offense walks up and just hikes the ball, that means one of 2 things, right? One of 2 things. They either have your defense figured out and their game plan is working, or the offensive coordinator is stubborn and stupid. Pay attention in the next game versus the Packers. Now that I brought it up, I'm sure some of you guys are aware of this stuff. But as long as Glenn, right, as long as he can pivot and make these adjustments, And the defense is making the adjustments and dictating those adjustments to the offense. The offense is going to have to make adjustments. That's how you know the defense is working. Before the snap even happens, before the play is even over, if they're not making adjustments, they got us whipped and we're going to lose the game. We'll see if I'm right. Because I expect a lot of adjustments on Thursday by the offense. I really do. The other thing, man, Glenn pivots and makes adjustments just like he did. The defense can shoulder this load. They can. They just proved it. Like I said, got to do it 2 times in a row, but they just proved it that they can do it. Finding the right combos for guys to work, as units. Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I saw units rotating in, not just single guys, here or there. It was 2 or 3 guys at a time, right? The longest time I ever seen Hutch off the field, it was not more than a couple of plays, but they were getting him a breath when he needed a breath. I really think the Lions are close at figuring this whole thing out. I really do. And Buggs was a huge piece of Sunday. Huge. Look, no stat line for the guy, really, to speak of. That is a production player. He's somebody that is going to help you win by allowing the guys to the left and right of him win. The defense played much better with Buggs in. And I'm still scratching my head as to why he wasn't in the first 2 games. I understand they have a plan. And I understand you're going up, a faster offense with the Mahomes crew. And you wanted the faster guys on the field. And Buggs just isn't one of those guys. But that doesn't mean that he can't be effective being a bigger guy clogging up the hole in the run game. It just means that he's not going to get a lot of snaps because he's only going to be used in key pieces, of the game plan. But I really think that he would have been more effective against Seattle. So here's what it is, man. We got a loss on the season because of it, I think. He's a staple on this defense. He proved it. He proved it. He proved it. Again, he's not going to be on the stat sheet much. He wasn't last year. But when you watch him work, he clogs up the lanes. He helps other defenders get free and make the play. A couple of things that we keep noticing, and hopefully it doesn't keep happening. But this is a major improvement that needs to happen. So I've said a lot of great positive things. This is a negative one. And I'm bringing it up because it's important. Missed tackles are a major problem right now for this defense. It didn't seem like it on Sunday, but it is. Anzalone, I always call him Anzalone, is coming off of his best season statistically last season. He dropped from a 16% missed tackle rate in 2021 to a 7.4% missed tackle rate in 2022. That is huge. He doubled his efficiency to now in 2023. Granted, it's only 3 games into the season. This is going to be a tough stat to make better. 25% missed tackle rate. That means every 1 out of 4 hits that he goes to make, or 1 out of 4, he misses, or they bounce off. Now, he played phenomenal on Sunday. He made a lot of key tackles in the very beginning of the game. But 25% missed tackle rate. I mean, you might as well close your eyes every 4th play. So they got to get this fixed. Another one that you're not going to like, Aiden Hutchinson. He's missed 16.7% of the tackles. Huge drop in performance. 5.5% last season. And that's where he should be. I mean, when you look at some of the better defensive edge, rushers, 5.5% is great. Well, that's better than acceptable. As a team, the entire Lions team averaged 5.4% last season. Currently, this defensive this whole Detroit defense is averaging 14.3% missed tackles. Huge problem. Huge problem. You're not going to win games missing tackles. And we see how it hurts this team time and time again. The game's going well. You're stopping them. It's 3rd and long, and next thing you know, they get a first down. And it's like, come on, you missed them, and you missed them, and you missed them, and 12 yards later, they get a first down. It happened time and time again, even this past Sunday. Not too many because they didn't have a ton of yards, but there was plenty of instances like that. Let me back up into the chat. I apologize. Running this by myself here is not always the easiest with the chat. Too many penalties. Yep, got that one. Defensive secondary seems to always be our issue. Not the safeties, but the cornerbacks. What is my take? Harvey Lynn. Look, it's early with a new defensive unit. And I will, since I'm talking about missed tackles, the defensive backs have the worst stats right now, besides Brian Branch. Tracy Walker just got his first crack at it, and he did really well. Fetu Melifonwu, I think he got his first crack on Sunday. Most positive he got his first crack on Sunday. Played really well. Best game I've ever seen if Fetu Melifonwu ever play for the Lions. He looks thinner this year too. But again, when CJ Gardner-Johnson was in, I want to say his missed tackle rate was somewhere around 8.7%. Jerry Jacobs is getting torched, just completely torched, not only for completion rating, but also missed tackle rate. And I apologize, I don't have those stats pulled up because I didn't plan on talking about every single one of them, but there's a lot. So if you go to Pro Football Reference, that's where you can back up all of the stats that I pull. I'll usually pull them from there, or we have subscriptions to some other stat places, but these ones are from Pro Football Reference. Go look at advanced defensive stats and take a look at the Lions defense this year and last year and the year before. Look at Jerry Jacobs, man. He's always been fairly pathetic, in my opinion. I don't know how he's winning a starting position at cornerback. And I was really hoping that there was going to be somebody that pushed him. And I'm sure there's some of you guys that like him, or girls, whoever's watching tonight. But Jerry Jacobs has been an issue. He's a great dude, right? I mean, he's a great locker room guy. There's nothing wrong with it there, but something's just missing in his game where he's either not being aggressive enough or he's way out of alignment. On Sunday, even though the Falcons didn't have a ton of yards, the majority of the plays were on Jacobs' side. He was targeted the most. They completed the most against Jacobs. And there's a reason for that. They're going to pick on the weakest link. And quite honestly, with Sutton, Cam Sutton's got a high missed tackle rate too. He's had some great plays. He's had a few costly penalties. I expected more out of Sutton. For an $11 million guy, I expected more. I'm not mailing the bag in on him yet. I think he's going to be just fine. It's early. They're figuring each other out. They got a lot to figure out as a new team. And they'll get there. They'll get there. I'm not worried about it at all. It's just when you ask the question, got to answer it. And I'll be honest with you. We always try to be truthful and transparent with everything with this. Some people like it. Some people don't. There's a lot of issues in that defensive backfield that need to get cleaned up. And, one of our biggest talkers is out of the game right now. So someone's got to pick up the slack. This is where guys have to step up. And we're seeing guys like Brian Branch come in and step up, who's obviously our best defensive back on the team right now. And without his play, this defensive backfield's in a much worse position than it could be in. So it needs work. We'll get there. Let me get to the other question here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name, but Marashi. I live in Florida. What is your thoughts on the Lions at Tampa? I'm going to watch this game. But Tampa can be a very hard team to beat. Tampa's a good team right now. But here's what I've got to do is defer the question till we get a little bit closer to the game. Because as any good analyst will do is I'll do the majority of my work the week before and really kind of take in where they are at that time and kind of where the Lions are at that time. If the two were to meet today, it's a tough game. And it's going to be a close game today. I couldn't give you a score prediction. I couldn't tell you what the Lions, in my opinion, would need to do or not do. But I would tell you it's going to be a tough game, and I can tell you right now, Tampa is going to be a tough team. It's just too early for me to make and I apologize. I know I'm kind of letting you down right now, but I got to look at the stats and really dive into it all and watch the game tape to give you an educated answer on it. So come back to me when we get close to the game, And I'll definitely have some answers for you then. Next question here. Mike Miller, Gibbs needs Monty combo. Yeah, I think what you're saying there is they thrive off each other, and they do. They are a 1-2 punch, and I think that's exactly why the Lions brought two different styles of running backs in. I still would have loved to have seen a third wheel that could be an either or, right? Someone that could be between a power back and a speed back that could plug in either direction. They didn't do that. They kept Craig Reynolds around. I mean, what's his name retired early? Justin Jackson, who was that guy. He was the in-betweener. And when I see people, and I'm going to say this too, when I see people saying, oh, we should have kept Swift. Look, the Lions had zero confidence in Swift. He had an 85% chance of getting injured this year based on the statistics. And he'll get injured this year. I guarantee it. And if he doesn't, I'd be super surprised. Was he just saying he was injured? Was he just getting injured because he didn't want to play for the Lions? I don't know. But if he does great for the Eagles, he does great for the Eagles. The proof's in the puddings for the Lions. He didn't do well. He couldn't stay on the field. And when he was on the field, he very rarely had a decent game. The Lions also didn't give him a ton of touches either. So the Lions, they definitely need that 1-2 combo back. David should be back either this Thursday or definitely by the Panthers game. And our running game will get back to where it needs to be. Look, we didn't have a bad outing versus the Falcons, but it wasn't as good as it could have been either. And it wasn't as dominant as it needed to be. Our running game predicates our play action passing. When our running game's working, the play action passing really opens everything up for us. And that's where Ben Johnson can dial a lot of different things up in this offense. We just haven't seen it since, really at all this whole season. It really hasn't been put to work just yet. Yeah, baby, no TDs. That's right, man. We kept them out of the end zone. I hope it happens again this season. That is a feat in and of itself. Baker's no threat to this defense. I would beg to differ. I'm telling you, Baker's a dog. He really is. He wasn't treated fairly, on the teams that he's been with. I mean, he didn't have the greatest of showing when he was with the Browns, but he was with the Browns. I mean, come on. The doo-doo Browns, they're terrible. So, I mean, they're just as bad as what the Lions were for 50 years. So, look, Baker's on a good squad. He's got some threats, and he's got some options. As long as he's healthy and he can get mobile in the pocket, he's going to hurt you. But if the Lions can get at him, he's going to have a bad day. He's another Ritter type of quarterback that once you rattle him, he's not going to be the same quarterback he was to start the game. They do have a nice offense, 100%. 100%. Can't go the whole show without mentioning Hutch dance moves. You know what though? I kind of did in the beginning when I was saying the piece about Jack Campbell. The reason why I said that, look, I love when Hutchinson does stuff to get the crowd pumped up, right? But now he's at a point in his career where he's a leader. I know he's having fun, but I was trying to make the stark difference there that Jack Campbell did it in a way that showed you I've been here before and I'm going to continue to be here. Hutch does it in a way of, being cocky and really giving the fans what they want, and that's okay too. And it really pisses off the offense, and then it gets in their head. So there's two ways to do it. There's two ways to get in the offense's head. Act like you've been there, put it in their face. Either one of them's fine. Love Hutch and what he does. But I was making the stark difference there. Eagles exposed who? What am I missing on that one? Not real sure. True, I worry about Mike Evans and Godwin. Yeah, I mean, Mike Evans he's a dangerous wideout. But we're starting to put together a defensive backfield that can stand up to some of these bigger receivers. Some big body receivers, too. Mike Evans is not a small guy. Jeffrey Blackburn says, I agree. I think Buggs should have been in there. He should have been, man. He really should have been. I would love to know what was going through AG's head and Dan Campbell when they decided to sit one of their best run cloggers on the team, who we've always struggled in the run game. So why would you put the best run clogger you have on the team on the bench? Get it? They were going for speed. But you don't need speed when you got someone that can take up 2 gaps and a long reach to maybe get to the, half of another gap. The guy is so big. Long arms. Bugs is my guy, says David Fox. He's like the big teddy bear, man, that everyone loves to be around. But you get him on the field and it's a different guy altogether. Sutton is a solid number 2 cornerback. Seen him get beat a lot in Pittsburgh. It's funny you say that because when I broke down the tape on him, I was glad that he was coming to Detroit. I think that he was better than Jeffrey Okudah has ever been, but he did get beat often for big plays. But that was about it. It would be a few big plays throughout the season. For the most part, people tried to stay away from him. The other opposing quarterbacks tried. The other teams tried to stay away from quite a bit, but he did get burned, and that's what I'm worried about. So we'll see where it develops. There's a difference between, like, let's say you put a bunch of number 2s on a team, former number 2s from other teams on your team, but you change the defense in a way, or you put them into a schematic that fits them better. Right? Not so much the team, runs the same scheme. It's the team is the scheme and they build it around them. These number 2s are going to start to play like number 1s because they're all working on the same wavelength. They're all working together, which, I mean, it's no secret. That's what defenses and offenses try to do. They all try to work as one. They all try to, run the same play, same timing, same momentum. And they have the same objective. Each one of them has to do their job so the guy next to them can do their job and they can have success at the end of the day. But there's a different level to this and a different layer that I'm trying to say here, that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and AG and the rest of that crew are trying to change and remold and refocus what it means to be unique within yourself, but also apply your skills into something and play as a team. It's different. It's different how they're trying to do it. And I know that they've said it time and time again. They're going to bring these players in and they're going to play them to their strengths, not a scheme. They're going to fit the team, not so much the scheme as much as they fit the team and the culture. You get the same mentality in a room, you're going to have more success. There's a million different, ways I could say it, but it's different right now in Detroit. And we just have to see it come to fruition. They got to get their guys in the room to be able to do that and pull off that philosophy. And maybe I'm misreading it, but I guess that's kind of what I've read out of it the last 3 seasons. I guess let me know what you think. All right, let me see where I was. I was talking about missed tackles, right? This is a major cog in the Lions' plans to be dominant and win big games. It really is. The good news, like I said earlier, is this number can only get better. And it must, right? It's got to get better. If the Lions want to make a deep run this season and hang, with the better teams as the season grows, they have to dial this in. And it really begins with AG, putting this team in the right place to be successful, kind of what I was just talking about, with the right defensive calls, the right players on the field at the right time together to do it, playing together as one, and being able to get to the ball. Like I said in the beginning, the first game of the season, I want to see 2 hats on every tackle to a wide receiver. I want to see 3 hats on every tackle to a running back. The more hats you can get on a play, the better. And you have better chances of making the tackle. So what? Anzalone misses the first tackle, and Brian Branch is right behind him to clean it up. They've got to learn to play in a manner that they're backing each other up and they're not all out on an island. And if they can just do that, this missed tackle percentage is going to come down. And I think that's kind of what we were missing in Seattle is, man, they really looked confused. They looked way out of it at times and didn't have a clue. They looked better against the Chiefs, which you would have thought that, they wouldn't have. That would have been the game that would have got them. But then again, maybe they were just so emotionally and mentally spent after winning that game. And everything they poured into and everything they heard for 5 months leading up to that game, they finally just, they let it go. And they let everything else go with it before Seattle came to town. All right, my final 10th point. And I was happy to finally say that Dan Campbell made adjustments to his risk profile. maybe, just maybe, he got on the phone with a financial advisor on a Friday afternoon, gets his paycheck and looks at it and says, man, yeah, I need to call so-and-so and figure out how to invest this money. He probably started thinking, maybe I need to diversify this defense and this offense a little better. Maybe I need to diversify when I'm going to be risky in these games, when I'm going to take the damn points, when I'm going to go for it on fourth down, and when and if I'm ever going to call a timeout. So he finally started to do that this last Sunday. He took the points when we could get the points, when it made sense. Those were the times that he would usually go for it. Majority of time, he would win and it would work out. Sometimes it wouldn't win, and hindsight's always 20/20, and the guy gets crucified, and that's all you hear about. Look, the field goal to end, around the end or toward the end of the second quarter really added to the buffer that the Lions needed later in the game. And it was that buffer that, continued the Lions to have more of an aggressive style on defense. That was a very long, sustained drive of 14 plays and 67 yards, which is not a drive that you want to lose. It's not one that Campbell feels that he can't win. But the penalties were hurting on that drive, and he was smart here to just get out with the points. But like I was saying a minute ago, it is harder to be aggressive on defense when you do not have a buffer and you cannot make a mistake. Having that buffer of 2 scores makes a bigger difference than you think when the game is entering the last 9 minutes of the game. So kudos to Dan Campbell. He made the adjustments necessary. And that's got to be tough because from day one, game one, I hope that, I'm not wrong in saying this, but game one, Campbell was coming out the box with trick plays. The first game he took on the field as a Lion. So, all right, that's all I got for tonight. I hope you all enjoyed the show. I want to thank everybody for jumping in. We'll see y'all next time. Go Pride.
So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one. It'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. Doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Sewell. He caught it. Billy Sewell with a first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, CJ Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
We call him things out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser.